Welcome to squatch-DTV, where the truth is first before all else. Join your hosts, veteran investigator, TV personality, and author Steve Kulls, and from the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Project and the Kentucky Fried Fixes channel, Chris Bennett. Sit back and prepare to take yourself on a journey with the longest-running Bigfoot podcast, Squatch-DTV. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-DTV for today's date, May 19th, 2024. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective Steve Bowles, along with my co-host right down there, Mr. Chris Bennett. And where did our picture go?
Hey, Steve. I don't know.
Where did our picture go?
You got the badge up there. Oh, there it is. Yeah. That's a handsome looking fella there with a magnifying glass. So how's Steve doing tonight, man? I mean, how's your neck doing?
Hang on a second. Apparently this computer wants to do things when
Oh no. We're not starting off with
no, I moused over something and something popped up because, you know, one of these new latest additions to Windows 10 and I can't seem to get rid of it.
Crap. Yeah, we're updating now. No, update later. No, we're shutting down now. Did you get your yard mowed? I was wondering about that.
Well, thanks to my good friend Scott, one of my neighbors, offered a very affordable way of getting it done. So
good.
I don't have to worry about that for
great.
a while.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Scott. Appreciate that.
And man, got much better as far as the shot. You know, I only shots Wednesday, and you know, I had the typical soreness for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And yesterday I felt pretty good. Today, a little sore today. I don't know why, but a little sore. Probably because I went to church. My my granddaughter Ava decided she wanted to be baptized in the church.
Well, that's great. That's great.
And she made the decision on her own. So
good for her.
You know, I had to go up there and support her and her mom and everything, and it was a great time.
Good deal.
So
we've had some nice weather down here, man. It's been really nice today. Sunshiny, you know, all week has just been kind of hit off and on with rain and
well, we're in a little bit of a heat wave today. We went up to about 81 today, 82. Yeah. And I haven't got the air conditioners in yet, so it's going to be another task to have somebody help me with that.
Job.
But
hang in there, man. Hang in there.
Yeah. But tomorrow it's supposed to be in the high 80s, and I think on Tuesday it's supposed to be up to 89.
Well, I love that air conditioning.
Yeah, I got to get it in. So I'm gonna be working on hopefully getting somebody to help me with that next couple of days.
What a subject for tonight. What a subject.
We do. We have quite the subject. And the office assistant wants to be let in. So if somebody just give me 1 second, I'll
go ahead.
Office.
Go ahead. Hey, we can't short Watson his official duties here, which is standing by and eating doggy snacks, I guess. Doggy treats.
Okay, the office assistant is in place.
All right.
We had a little company. My wife's son and daughter were over, so he was kind of hanging out there. And he just noticed the door's closed over here, and I got to get in the office.
Oh yeah! Don't open them doors; they'll shred them open. They'll shred them. Yeah, they got to come in. Yeah. But look like, golly, the chat is hopping. Look at that!
Look at that! We got to do the chat, man.
Already, we got 35 people already. Well, it's good to see everybody.
And thank you, Mick. Look at Mick already did that.
Thank you. God, Mick. Thanks. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mick.
Well, let's get down to our list. We got a fun show tonight. We're going to be talking some Bigfoot theory tonight, and maybe some possible new player for an ancestor of definitely an ancestor of us. And I think because it goes back so far, it's probably an ancestor of our friend, the big guy. And for that, also, But anyway, first in tonight, Em and Chris, who is a night. Good health. Sharon from Belgium. Hello, Sharon.
Sharon.
Relic comment will be on tomorrow to catch it. Thank you, sir.
Comment and catch you on the replay, bud.
Bat Mom, what's going on? Hello, Bat Mom. Pat. Well, good to see Pat's back in the chat. You know, Pat had a little bit of a spell.
Yeah.
Pat had pneumonia.
Oh, man.
And well, I'm glad to see he's on the mend. I was talking with Tommy the other day, Pat. We hung out for about 25 minutes or so, just shooting the bulb. Some of it about you, worried about you, of course. Of course, Mick. Thank you again, Mick. And he says,
Thanks,
that must mean someone captured my ex-moms in a Saskatchewan. Our good friend Walter Kroll. Hello, Walter. Don Gumow, good to see you. Bristol, good to see you. Grasshopper, how are you? Bill, finding the trackway. What's happening? Kevin Harder and the professor, good to see you, sir. Little Kilroy has left the building. I bet you he still hasn't left. I bet you he's still hanging out back there. But
Little Kilroy.
Jen, what's going on? Jen, good to see you.
Yeah.
Michael Williams, good to see you, sir.
Michael,
welcome. Tom Connolly, he's going to catch it up Monday at work. Good,
right.
Good for you, Tom. Hopefully, we can give you some enjoyment. Just on another note, I haven't uploaded any of the last few weeks' episodes to our audio podcasts to Spotify and all that. I'm going to get that done this week. So we're going to have a bunch of episodes being uploaded this week. So stay tuned for your podcast aficionados out there. There it is, John. Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. Good to see you.
Wizard, welcome.
Henry May in the house.
Henry, good to see you, bud. Yeah, I'm kind of lost. This always happens.
Something to Sasquatch about. Good to see you back.
Something to Sasquatch about. That's a good name. I like that.
There's Mike, Tactical Bigfoot Research.
Mike, come on, Tack. Good to see you.
Buttworm is in the house.
Buttworm.
Sandra Piper.
Sandra?
Up there's DM Zabo. He's here.
Abo, welcome. Let's see, Boris Kahn. Hey, Boris.
Boris is back. Good to see you, Boris. And thank you, Ristel. And yep, again, Uncle Bones too will be missed. We mentioned Friday that Uncle Bones had passed away back on the 12th, a week ago.
I hate that.
And that's, horrible. Jay Fritz. There's Jay Fritz. Jay's in the house.
Welcome.
Nikki is here. Sasquatch Secrets. Hello, Nikki.
Nikki, good to see you.
First Kind. Good to see you, First Kind. And congratulations on getting that membership as well as I think Sam. So there we are. We have our roll call done.
And thanks again, Ristel. Appreciate that.
Yes. And thank you, Mick, for gifting out.
Bless you both.
Yeah, so I heard there was a little fun over at Nikki's show earlier with the our old friend turning up now, claiming up. Blake Burrows is in the house as well. Hello, Blake.
Yeah, I didn't get you. Normally, I listen to Nikki's show in the background while I'm having supper, but tonight I was listening to something else. I didn't get to catch it. So fill me in a little bit. What's going on?
Well, apparently our old friend, and you know who I'm talking about, apparently is now making the claim that Bigfoot doesn't exist. Well, we congratulate him because now at least he believes in something. So we'll leave it at that. Which means to me, he's got no reason to be anywhere near our show because, want to come on once in a while and try to debate it, that's fine. But we've debated enough times with him, and I don't mind debating something when somebody you're going to change their mind, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I just can't debate something with somebody that's not going to be open. And unfortunately, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Well, it's good to be a skeptic. It's good to have a skeptical attitude, but it's
as
not,
we all are.
Yes, it's not good to be have a scofftic attitude, though. No matter what, you can't do that. You can't have your mind already made up and enter a debate that about the unknown.
Hey, and you know who popped in? David Gray. And we're
David.
gonna have him. We're gonna have him out in the field too. Welcome, David.
Good deal. Welcome.
We're gonna have him out in the field, and not only that, he can. It's kind of funny. Like 2 weeks after I got wrecked in that car accident, he got really wrecked in a car accident, worse than I did.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So I hope, David. Hope you're feeling well, brother. I mean, what the heck? We got David and Pat, and the whole team around here is
must be
all in
going
the
around.
pie.
Michael Williams. Welcome, Michael. Wow. More people keep rolling in, and glad to have you. More the merrier.
But anyway, getting back on that last topic, if you're going to take that attitude, you have no reason being in a chat room full of Bigfoot believers, and then you're just trolling at that point, and that's the way I feel about it. Is okay, if you're going to have this ultimate, I don't believe in it, then why are you even showing up at Bigfoot shows? It's like, leave us alone. Leave us alone. You don't want to believe, that's fine. I mean, all you're doing is trying to stir the pot, and we don't need that. So
I recommend trolling over in the politics section.
Right.
That's far and away from me.
Enjoy your new click of the skeptics. That's all I can say. Yeah.
But I'll admit, when I first saw the topic for tonight's show, I was a little taken back.
Why was that?
Well, you brought up something that I hadn't been read up on in several years. As a matter of fact, I was thinking it was around 2015 when I last read this, but actually it had to have been sooner than that, because that's when it was discovered, between 2015 and 18. On
right.
The Danuvius guggenmosi.
2019.
2019.
The Danuvius guggenmosi. And that is probably one of the more interesting topics of the night. Is we want to talk about a possible Sasquatch ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, number one, the Danuvius guggenmosi is also, we are related to it. We evolved from the Danuvius as well, guggenmosi as well.
In theory.
Kelly Tour says, I'm your Bigfoot experiencer, trolls dogman people. Sorry. Oh, that's all right. Hey, as long as you ain't trolling us, we're happy with that. We don't care.
Hey, Kelly, I've not seen a dog man either. So
right. Well, we'll get into that in a bit if we want to, about the somebody had posted this footprint from Wisconsin and saying, "Oh, look at that!" And it was so narrow. And you think about it, a narrow foot with such a large body would just not support the weight or climbing or anything. You would end up breaking. If it was bipedal. But anyway, so the Danuvius guggenmosi was around 11.6 million years ago. And it was an early known great ape known for its unique combination of an arboreal and terrestrial locomotion capabilities. The fact is that the Danuvius, which I'm going to call it Danuvius, I'm not going to call it the guggenmosi. It's
okay, yeah.
So the Danuvius apparently had legs structured very much like ours.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really a cool thing. And they said it did use, every once in a while, it did use some trees and overhead stuff to assist it, because it was both arboreal and terrestrial.
Yes.
So it had that mixture. Wasn't very big, of course. You understand, we got bigger as time went by. If you ever look at any evolutionary chart, we just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So 11.6 million years ago being one of the earliest, that would definitely make a bit smaller. But here's some of the stats on that. So the guggenmosi lived 11.6 million years ago during the mid-late Miocene era in southern Germany, of all places. Yeah. It is the sole member of the genus Danuvius. The area at this time was probably woodland and with a seasonal climate, which is what we have here in the Great Northeast and maybe Kentucky to some extent, although you tend to get a little milder winters.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Jerk.
I remember that was one of the things that stuck out at me. That they were found in a clay pit in Bavaria. Bavaria.
Yes.
Home of BMW.
Exactly. We're found in Bavaria. It was first discovered they found long bones, which could be used to reconstruct the limb anatomy and thus the locomotion of contemporary apes.
Right.
Its discoverer was paleoanthropologist Madeline Bohm. Said it had adaptations for both hanging in trees and walking on two legs, bipedalism. Right. Whereas among present-day great apes, humans are better adapted for the latter and the others the former. Yeah. So this seems to be like the junction point right here.
Yeah,
where some split one way and some split the other way.
Yeah. They were very excited because of the resemblance to human bones. So that was pretty cool. And the height thing, what got me?
Go ahead. Sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying the height thing is what got me, because I remember when I had read this, they said they were around 3 feet tall. But, when you think back about it too, we've got Homo floresiensis, and they were very short. And I think a lot of that may be depending on their environment that they were in, whether being smaller was an advantage or larger would be an advantage.
And right on, Mike. And you wonder why, 23andMe looks for Neanderthal DNA.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They do.
And you think about it, I mean, we've only gotten taller and bigger as the years go on.
Yeah.
And if you think about the average size of a Homo sapien today versus 200 years ago. Like in America, the average height was 5'7". In the 50s and 60s. Hang on a second. I'm getting some kind of electrical feedback again. There we go. Got it.
I don't hear anything on the show.
No, you won't. It's on my end. I have something that's feeding back, something that's not shielded back great. That's it gives a little bit of feedback in my headphones. But the average height of a person back, that's why George Washington, who was 6'2", back in colonial days, they looked at him like, oh my God, he was a man of stature.
He was a giant of a man.
He would be, like today, if we go by today's standard, he'd probably be about 6'7".
Yeah.
6'5", 6'7", really stand out in the crowd.
Abe Lincoln was tall.
Yep. For his time, yep, he was, dude, another man of stature.
Basketball players.
Right.
Before the game was invented.
Yep. So we have a ton of different reasons why. Okay, it's small. Got it.
Well, I remember that one of the exciting things. Well, two exciting things. One was the comparison to the human bone. That was great. They were matching up with human bones almost identically, and or very similarly. And the other one was the curvature of the spine.
Correct.
That allowed them to. Well, this thing could walk on two legs.
Right. Yeah, the curvature of the spine, the legs looked a lot. The diaphragm was actually placed in a way very similar to the way it does us today. They were the first of the line to actually have their diaphragm lower as opposed to up higher.
Don't remember that. That's cool.
And of course, like the Bigfoot, people, There's one, apparently one paleontologist says, well, there isn't enough evidence to say that it had anything to do with bipedalism. Okay. They were discovered in the Hammerschmied clay pit near the town of Forzen in the Tortonian boundary, which is in the Bavaria, and was unearthed between 2015 and 2018.
I swear, I think I remember reading something around 2015 about this, but I know I saw that article you're talking about. It's 2019. It is.
Comprises of a skeleton with elements of the mouth, vertebrae, and long bones. There are also 3 paratypes: an adult left femur, big toe and teeth, juvenile teeth, and a middle finger bone. And there are 37 specimens in total.
Wow. That's a lot. That is a lot. Yeah.
The tooth anatomy is most similar to that of the Dryopithecine. I'm sorry, the Dryopithecine great apes. Dryopithecine. Having both adaptations for hanging in trees and standing up on 2 legs, bipedalism. Danuvius may have been very similar in locomotory methods to the last common ancestor between humans and other apes, which adds weight to the hypothesis that ape suspensory activity and human bipedalism both originated from a form capable of both, which is this is.
Yes. Right. So we have bipedal apes and bipedal humans later.
Right. So this would obviously be something that I would think logically that if Sasquatch exists, and I'm going to put that as a speculatory, even though I've seen 2 of them, but if a Sasquatch exists, one would think that this is probably this would be the common ancestor, at the very least, that we have with a Sasquatch, because it exhibits it's sound, because this is where bipedalism started. So I would think that so I really think now let's talk about the weight. It weighed on average about 51 pounds. The holotype specimen as adult male was calculated based on the sizes of the hip and knee joints to have weighed 26 to 37 kilograms, 57 to 82 pounds, with a point estimate of 31 kilograms, 68 pounds. And the females, so the adults 57 to 82 pounds, the females 35 to 49 pounds.
Well, I saw an artist rendering too of that, and it has a large resemblance to chimpanzee.
Yes, it does. Very much so. Very much so. But I have another suspect too that we're going to get to in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's nice to know that we've got more bipedal apes than just the Gigantopithecus.
Now, like, this is the first one that they know that they've seen this common character of bipedalism and in a commonality with the great apes as well.
Right.
And there's another one, and we're going to get to that one in a little bit, that was about 4.4 million years ago. And I have a picture, an artist's conception of that one. And I look at it and go, damn, that looks like a Bigfoot. The face looks like a Bigfoot. Maybe not exactly, maybe not with all the some of the robust features it has now, but the face, like that, fits the bill. But we'll get to that. The sex of the individuals was determined by the size of the canines, with males presumed to have had larger canines than females. Male Dryopithecines are thought to have had an elongated face with the molars pushed more towards the front of the mouth, like those of other Dryopithecines.
Yeah.
The molars of the Danuvius were wide, so they were big teeth, big toothed.
Right. And that seems to be prevalent in reports where people have seen their teeth, that they were big blocky teeth up front.
Right. Now, here's an interesting thing. The premolars had 3 roots instead of 2. Now, if you ever have a premolar pulled, you only have 2 roots in that bad boy. So your front teeth only have like 2 roots. Yeah. These suckers had 3. It's wild.
And they could eat a brick for supper and chew it up.
So the canines were more vertically oriented rather than somewhat sticking out. So the canines were not really that visible. Yeah. The Danuvius is thought to have a broad chest. And that's a characteristic for Sasquatch. I've ever heard one. Broad-chested. It is the first recorded Miocene great ape to have had the diaphragm located in the lower chest cavity, as in Homo. Uh-huh. Indicating an extended lower back and a greater number of functional lumbar vertebrae. This may have caused lordosis, which is the normal curvature of the human spine, and moved the center of mass over the hips and legs, which implies some habitual bipedal activity.
Well, if their diaphragm was lower, similar to that of humans, wouldn't that more or less give them more speaking of the ability to speak?
Don't know. I don't.
Depending on what kind of shape their vocal cords were in. But that is interesting. It to me, it seems like their vocal cords would be longer.
Right.
You know what I mean? They would have more range rather than making little chirps and chips.
Right, right. Yep. And as a singer, one of the time when you belt something out, you bring it up. You don't bring it up from here. You bring it up from your gut, right? Yeah, you bring it up from your gut, and that's how you're able to do that. The louder sounds. It's not coming from the throat; it's coming from the gut,
right?
And people who ruin their throats a lot of times, of course, mine has gotten rough over the years because of these things, but it's people who don't know how to sing, and they get on karaoke night now, and then the next morning they have laryngitis. That's because they're not singing from the diaphragm, which is where you belt out your tones. And it is something you have to train yourself for, actually.
Yeah.
The only time you do is you may get an instinctual guttural scream, like something horrible happens. You automatically comes right from the diaphragm. Mm-hmm. If you ever heard of those horrible stories where a parent loses their child, and people hear them scream or yell, it's like, oh my God, it was this. Right. That's coming from the diaphragm because it's very instinctual.
I can portray one of those screams every time I open my electric bill. Because it's horrible.
So John brings a point. Prehistoric animals on average were much larger within the species that have survived, like the tigers and elephants. Wouldn't it be probable Sasquatch is a surviving primate and explain the size? No, because in primates, it was the opposite. We actually went from smaller to larger. And a lot of that, because the larger animals, a lot of them died off. Right. The mastodons, they were huge, a lot bigger than the traditional elephants, and they died off to become something smaller. And I think of it as well as our journey has been a lot shorter than some of those other animals. Right. So I'm thinking that, just because back in, say, the Miocene era, something was this big, doesn't mean we were all at the same level at the time. Yeah. We might be developing at different timelines. Like some animals developed way earlier than us.
And Henry's got a good comment here. I want to put up, Steve, for a minute. Henry May says a book I recommend is The Upright Ape by Aaron G. Filler, which discusses the fact that all or most of the great apes have the ability to walk on two legs.
Right.
Very interesting. Thanks, Amy.
But because of foot structure, leg structure, back structure,
right,
center of gravity, yes, they have all the ability, but they don't have the ability to do it consistently. Like a bear can walk on, can have some bipedalism, but it's not built to walk on two legs.
Right.
So you got to look at for bipedalism. You may have something called temporary bipedalism, but in the case of like us, we walk upright. As soon as we learn to walk upright, that's it. We're always walking upright until we get too old or too broken down. We can't walk upright.
Right.
So there are some differences, but a very good point.
The bipedalism too is largely determined by the curvature of the spine and to be able to place the weight over the center of gravity while you're standing on two legs. And without that, it's difficult to stand. Plus our knees lock, the joints and stuff.
And it sounds similar. And Mike says it sounds similar to the creature they're seeing in South Africa, the Otang. That may be possible. But these weren't the Danuviuses did not exist. They did not start in Africa. They started in Germany. So I don't know. But we do have another. And
the Orang-Pendek in what was it? Sumatra
the Orang-Pendek in Malaysia. Yes.
Malaysia. Orang-Pendek. Yeah. In
the
Malaysia.
Orang-Pendek. Yeah.
Yeah. Little bitty Sasquatches running around.
Yeah. So here we get back to the our friend the Danuvius. The robust finger and hypertrophied wrist and elbows indicate a strong grip in load-bearing adaptations for the arms. The legs also show adaptations for load-bearing, especially at the hypertrophied knee joint. There was likely limited ankle loading, and the ankle would have had a hinge-like function, being most stable if positioned perpendicularly to the leg as opposed at an angle in the apes.
Right.
So in other words, standing up straight is where it was strongest.
So, we've got a creature here that can walk on two legs and feels comfortable hopping up in a tree too. Now that's kind of interesting.
And the limb proportions are most similar to that of bonobos. So the Danuvius was capable of seemingly a unique manner of locomotion called extended limb clambering. Danuvius likely walked among mildly inclined tree branches with its foot directly laid onto the branch, using its strong big toes for grasping. The strong knee would have provided balance while walking by counteracting torques, and the strong hands would have certainly carried out a similar function during suspension or palm walking.
Right.
Extended limb clambering emphasizes knee extension and lordosis, which is the curvature of the spine, as well as suspensory mechanisms as seen in apes, and may be a precursor to obligate bipedalism seen in its human ancestors.
Right.
So very interesting that also the same area yielded other creatures like mollusks, fish, cold-blooded vertebrates, small mammals such as rodents, rabbits, martins, hamsters, and shrews. And however, large mammals also such as the mouse, deer, and the antelope and the rhinoceros were also located in a similar area. The site is located in upper freshwater morass of the Molasse Basin. By the late Miocene and Perithese Sea had dried up and the Alps had lifted, allowing the expansion of wetlands habits into the baseline. So that's just more. So very, very interesting.
Well, I like the idea that it can climb in the trees as well as walk on the ground, because I think that
that would be if that's the earliest, it's probably going to do both, and that's what it seems to do.
But that's one of the things I think about Bigfoot. I think they can. I mean, I've never seen one in a tree, but I think they can climb a tree. I really believe that. And then you got the Bigfoot baby video in New York where that little rascal's hanging in the tree. So I don't know. Maybe as they get larger, they can't, or they tend to break the trees off or uproot them. But.
Yep. So as we go along this this chart line, this timeline, hang on.
Yeah,
there we go.
Heard it that time.
Well,
it's okay now. Yeah.
No, I actually I just pounded it down. I don't know why something is not doing that, but so the next one is the Ardipithecus, another genus of great apes that lived in Europe and is considered a close relative in the evolutionary line. However, femur and humerus examinations showed that it did walk on all fours and did not show any signs of bipedalism. The Ardipithecus, which is 9 to 10 million years ago, a genus that lived in Greece and Turkey and showed some characteristics linking it to later hominins. They have some common characteristics between apes and humans, but they're more ape-like in characteristics than they were quadrupedal. The one that I'm really targeting here, eventually we go to 4.4 million years ago, and we have something called the Ardipithecus. Now, the Ardipithecus was an early hominin genus known from Ethiopia, showing both ape-like and human-like characteristics. Again, this was like the last one that had those characteristics. It was, I'm not sure if it was quadrupedal because the information on the web is very limited on it. In fact, I put in Ardipithecus and I get references to a band, but I get mild references to like Wikipedia. It's not on Wikipedia. So it's one of those.
Ardipithecus? They got so many, those names.
No, it's Ardipithecus. Ardipithecus. And maybe it's because, let's try this. So I'm just trying to, okay. So I do have the, okay, I got it. Yes, Wikipedia does have a page on it. So again, this is one. Yep.
Wow. That rib cage looks pretty human too.
Yeah. And this was actually a million more years before Lucy.
Wow.
So this is even, and if you look at a picture of, let me see if I can get a picture of it, because my computer is being totally an a-hole tonight.
No.
Apologize for the dead air. I'm trying to get my screens back.
That's one of the things about the rib cages that I've noticed, that the human rib cages is kind of like a V-shaped. And so when you get into the primate,
ask me this. This is what an Ardipithecus looked like. And that looks very similar to a lot of descriptions of what a Bigfoot was. The brow ridge. Maybe not so much the nose the way it is, but look at the ears. You can hardly see them.
Right. Yeah, tucked in close to the side of the head. Yeah.
Now, this is a hominid.
Right.
So this may not be a relative of necessarily the Sasquatch just yet. Right. But because what we don't see is the lack of a neck, because this is a hominin, not necessarily a pongid.
Right.
And again, we got to remember that a Sasquatch, a Danuvius was a primate and had characteristics of both of pongid and hominid.
Hominid, yeah.
I'm laughing because Jay
His
said,
name.
Steve asked Pat to come on the show because he knows all this stuff. Mick said, that's my
Mick.
yes, I can see the meatloaf behind her.
Oh man. But hey, this kind of jives with the reports of the sighting reports of the creatures that did not have a sagittal crest, would have a rounded type head.
Right.
Because you get reports of both types.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you see some divergence, but you look at that nose and that's related to us, not, so that's a hominid. And of course, as we move up the line, the next lineup would be the Australopithecus. There was a lot of people trying to believe that maybe an Australopithecus is a descendant of Sasquatch. Then you have the Homo habilis. Now you get into the homos, the Homo habilis and the Homo erectus, and then the Homo sapiens. Australopithecus was Lucy, basically. Australopithecus afarensis was Lucy. So, yeah.
Well, that was one of the things, too. We may have had a lot more species roaming around on the Earth than we do have today because as recently as, maybe 10,000 years ago when we had the last ice age.
First Kind One says there's many. I don't think they're, I don't think they're different species of Bigfoot. And you're right. They're probably different races or ethnicities, perhaps, just like there are in Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
That kind of puts them close to us, but their looks. So, like I said, I think they're a divergent class unto their own that have both hominid and pongid type of characteristics that we see. They have in some cases, they have a conical shaped neck in the males. They have the lack of a neck, and those are pongid. Yeah. They don't use complicated tools. They don't use fire. They don't wear clothing. They don't, make anything complicated. That's more pongid, but they walk bipedally, and their vision is more in depth, and their brain that's a little more on the hominid side. So where they fall on that, it's probably a little bit of a smattering of both. So when somebody says, "Oh, they're a people," we're kind of right about that. They're a people, but they're not a people in a sense. They're people like us because they're related to the hominids. But they're not a people per se that have like vast, extensive cultures or anything like that. They have their own cultures. Don't get me wrong, because chimpanzees and orangutans and gorillas all have their own cultures within them.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially the chimpanzees. Chimp culture has been, studied for years now.
They learn how to survive in the woods from their mom and dads,
right.
Their siblings. That's the way it's always been.
And one would expect that, we talk about races and reddish hair and stuff like that and some black, but where does that come from? It comes from our DNA makeup of our parents. Yeah. That's why I have brown eyes and some people have blue eyes and some people have male pattern baldness. Some people don't. It all depends on the genes. It's why some people have broad shoulders and some people have linky, slanky type of build. That's all genetics, and that's all intermixing different genes.
Yeah. The human race almost got down to extinction levels during the last ice age because of scarcity of foods and dramatic changes in the climate. And, you would assume that if the human race got down that low, the other creatures like us would have been It's had similar results. Times must have been hard on everybody back then.
And that's true too. But we may be at a point too where there may have been 11 million years ago, there may have been crossbreeding amongst different pithecuses, pitheci, where maybe I don't know which, if there were, now again, I'm not an anthropologist, but I would think that you would look at the areas where some of these creatures coexisted.
Yeah.
Like we know that Homo sapien did intermix with Neanderthal.
Yeah.
Homo erectus.
Homo erectus and Neanderthal. That was
right.
the Denisovan caves. Yeah.
Right.
That was
so
cool.
We do know they did that. So is it possible that way back when, for a period of time, we had this interbreeding, and that's what kind of set that one branch off that we just don't know about yet, or we know about that branch, but we've kind of put that there thinking it's there and actually it belongs there. We don't know.
Well, see,
there is so much we don't know, because remember 30 years ago, Lucy, it's the oldest. And then we find out about, the Danuvius, which is even older than Lucy. I thought Pat was going to go watch on his TV, but he just gave a Biscardius Ficadolius.
Oh, man.
That's it.
That's a good one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now have a scientific name for the Sasquatch. What is that again? My God.
Scardius Ficadolius. Dudalius.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Biscardius Ficadolius.
This is nice. But all the discoveries that were made in the cave, the Denisovan cave, their discoveries, I was excited because they had the mixed DNA in there, and not only the Neanderthal and the Homo erectus, but there was also another one.
Ficadolius.
There was also another one that they found in there that was a old extant DNA that they hadn't discovered yet. So that means there's another species in there somewhere we're still looking for. And that's great. That's great.
So let's look at this exchange. This is great. Mm-hmm. That was awesome, Patrick. I ain't just a pretty face. So yeah.
Who was that? Somebody said something about me that I had finally come out as a relative of Bigfoot. Who said that? I saw that up there. That was a long time ago, though.
Marcus Dasky is the cat that made the claims that he has Sasquatch blood in his arms. He was related to a Sasquatch. And he had this cockamamie story that, I don't know, when you say, you have Sasquatch blood running through your veins, and, that's why you know so much about it. And we give you the gong.
It was either like a National Enquirer or the Sun or something that I saw a woman said I had Bigfoot's baby. That was one of the stories there. I didn't buy the paper because I didn't think that much of it.
So, but I think we'll have a little fun tonight.
Track weight.
I have a trivia question, a science trivia question. And the science trivia question of the day is, what did the first webcam ever stream at the University of Cambridge in 1993? Go ahead, folks. Give it a shot.
Is this rated G?
Yes. Don't Google it. Just throw me what you think.
Well, I'm throwing my hands up in the air because I have no idea.
I kind of laughed when I saw it, actually. No, that Mike said the National Enquirer with Elvis. Well, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the ones you got the supermarket checkout stand.
Video killed the radio star. All right, now we're getting cliches here. Mice. Okay,
mice.
Loch Ness Monster. Well, you're going to love this. There actually is a guy. There actually was a guy. I don't know if he's still doing it. His name was Tico Masala. Very nice guy, great guy, and a really weird name, Tikka Masala. No,
that's
Tikka. That's Indian food.
Tikka Masala is a good chicken from India. It's good stuff.
What the hell was his name? His first name was oh God, I forget his name, but he was. See what I mean about old age? You get kind of tikka masala, it's fucking Indian food.
Trackway said it was a bird nest. Was it a bird's nest?
Okay.
Blinking light.
Aging cheese.
Jay, no, it's rated G, Jay.
So we'll give something to Sasquatch about kind of a half mark for this one. It was not a teapot, but it was a coffee pot. So people could check to see it was empty or full.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, look over at the webcam. Up. We need to get more coffee on. So yeah, so that's the trivia question tonight. Oh, that was kind of funny.
That's pretty funny.
But very cool, very cool, very close.
We're very close. The coffee pot.
Teapot. We will. You know what?
Yeah, that would work. It could have been tea. Cambridge, right?
Yeah, it's a coffee pot. The one, and they weren't checking to see if the tea. The reason why they put it on there is because they could see the level of coffee in the pot. Somebody, we need to make more coffee. Yeah, tell me about it.
Oh man. But getting back to Bigfoot. I think it was Don Gumow said that they use the trees, and I believe that. I believe they use the trees. I believe that. I think they can. And matter of fact, that was one of my theories. Instead of like I'm sure they're strong, but when you bring down a tree that's bigger than I can put my arms around, I don't think they have enough strength to push that over. I don't think they do. I think the way they do that is with leverage. I think they climb the tree and then lean it over or get it rocking, and then they bring it by using leverage. Theory now. I'm not seeing that happen. I've not seen them do it, but
every time I go out in the woods, I use a tree.
But I have been out and had 2 trees fall within 5 minutes of each other in an area that was really hot with activity, and we left. I didn't feel welcome, so we left. Now, I don't know whether they did that purposely or it was accidentally. As it turned out, they were pine trees. And when I went back later, they did have a lot of bark missing from them. So that was interesting. But they weren't dead. They had a lot of bark.
I've seen bears do that though too.
Mm.
They'll strip a tree of bark because they're looking at getting underneath the bark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Looking for beetles,
bugs, beetles, larvae.
But these trees were growing, and they were, nothing wrong with them. They ended up crashing down, both of them. within 5 minutes of each other for, I didn't see the Bigfoot up in the tree or didn't see it push the tree over, but we had some activity right prior to that. So it was interesting. Yeah.
Now you see in the official hominin timeline, the earliest bipedalism, according to this chart, was 7 million years ago during the Miocene era with the Sahelanthropus. But we see that in the Danuvius that's really where it kind of started. And that chart may be a little bit aged a bit too. So,
well, yeah, but when you get into the giant ape, the Gigantopithecus, wouldn't that don't they have some fossils dating from around 100,000 years ago?
yeah,
and I know Grover Krantz had
so
theorized that they lived up to about 10,000.
Here's something really interesting. That's where we make our split. 9 million years ago,
right.
The gorillas split off from our evolutionary branch. Right. 8.5 million years, the chimpanzees split. Right. So it would probably be a safe hypothesis that perhaps a Sasquatch broke off our chain somewhere, I would say, between 6.5 million to 7 million years. Because at 7 million years is when you see the first, at least by this chart, earliest bipedalism, straight bipedalism.
Right.
Right. Now, could it have been in the same time period that the chimpanzee split? So I would say anywhere from where 7 million year mark to like the 9 million year mark would be the proper area to look to see where a Sasquatch would diverge from that based on where the other splits had occurred with the other great apes. Right. And where we know at 11.5, we had one of them showing bipedalism. So if I was looking as a detective, which I am, that's what makes more sense to me. That's where it would go. Yeah, that's right. Keith Richards era. So that seems to me to make the most sense is somewhere between that, because if you think about it,
thank you, Kevin.
If we if we pop off to like 4.5 million years ago, or I'm sorry, 3.5 million years ago, that's when the earliest stone tool started used, and we haven't seen Sasquatch use a stone tool. So we knew the break has to be somewhere long before there. And at about 2.8 million years ago, we start seeing the earliest signs of the Homo genus. So I really think that, if we're looking at where it broke off from us, I would probably say somewhere between the 8 million to 9.5 million mark. Now, it wouldn't be a straight off Sasquatch breaking off, and that would be some
ancestor
somewhere along the line. It could be again, but that's why I don't think the Gigantopithecus makes a lot of sense. Gigantopithecus was a quad walker, right? He was big.
Well, it's theorized it could have walked on 2 legs. Yeah. Could have been bipedal. But, what they have to go by is, a jawbone, pieces of jawbone, and some teeth.
Right.
Now, I know these guys are good at their job. But it's really difficult to take a piece. To me, I just can't comprehend taking a piece of a jawbone and saying, okay, this creature walked upright.
Or did not.
Because
they're trying to say the Gigano didn't walk upright. It was a quad. It was like a giant orangutan. That's a good one, Michael. Michael Hurd says Sasquatch broke off when they developed to see in the future. And then they saw Dylan Mulvaney. He said, we're out of here. Yeah, we'll turn on our stone tools right now, damn it.
Oh, David Parker says, I have a stone tool used by Bigfoot. Okay.
Yes, but was it a rock or was it fashioned? Because it was fashioned. That's interesting because you'd probably be the only one that has one.
Well, I've heard a rock thrown,
or you can use a rock to break something.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be expected. But we're talking about, and when they say a stone tool, they mean something that was crafted to an edge.
Like a Native American craftsmanship or something.
Right.
Now, Pat's got a good point here. The Homo heidelbergensis is the one that Cliff Bergman thinks most likely.
No, he actually thought the Paranthropus.
Oh, the Paranthropus. I thought it was
the Paranthropus.
All these names.
No, I think those are way too new. I don't know. Maybe they aren't. But we're missing something somewhere.
Well, the difference is in the size.
But I mean, we're all going like 100,000 years ago, a couple 100,000 years ago. But the chimpanzees and the gorillas split millions of years ago.
Yeah.
Makes more sense to me that it was in that time that, okay, a stone uses a hammer. Well, that's not really necessarily. It's a simple tool, but it's not a crafted tool. It's not like a Stone Age type of tool. A Stone Age type of tool would be one where you're assembling it. And
I've not seen it, but the guy that reported it too, though, he reported seeing a Bigfoot dig clams from the beach with a stick.
Yeah.
That's believable, but the guy that reported that is not.
Right. And just because it was a piece of granite, it still don't matter. Yeah. It's a simple tool. It's not like it had enough wherewithal to say I can use this to break something like this.
And we have chimpanzees,
but they don't have the wherewithal to say, you know what? If I took this rock and I sharpened it to a point and used it as a spear, now that is advanced tool use. And that's something we don't see in the Sasquatch. So don't take just because they use a tool and they knock something that they're smart as us or they have the more of an advantage that chimpanzees do. I also happen, David, I'm sorry, I also happen to believe that Scott Carpenter believes everything. So I'm not a big fan of Scott Carpenter. I'll be straight up. He believes in the massacre theory. He believes in a lot of the paranormalism to Bigfoot. So I really can't get on board with Scott Carpenter.
Also, the problem with stone tools, if you find
the late Scott Carpenter, I mind you, nice guy and all, great guy, but I'm sorry, I did not necessarily agree with some of his thoughts.
Regarding the stone tool, one of the problems with that is if you find one in the wild, that could be very well a Native American craftsmanship, something made by Native Americans. It's really common for me. I can go walking in any creek around here because, man, we had a large population at one time of Native Americans, and I can find arrowheads and points and stuff in any creek. Where they wash out, and you just walk up the creek and find them.
Right. So, my point is this. Okay, a Bigfoot uses a stone tool called the rock, and he uses a rock as a tool or a piece of granite as a tool. If they use a rock or something as a tool, fine. But we see chimpanzees using sticks as tools and stones as tools. We see orangutans fashioning pillows and blankets for their beds at night. That they can get in bed and they can pull this blanket over them and they have some relief on their head.
Pretty smart.
Right? So just because a Sasquatch uses a rock to do certain things, it is nothing more special than a chimpanzee or a an orangutan does. So we got to put that in perspective.
It's interesting.
Far be it from the folks that think that, Bigfoot uses a rock. They got to be using a portal.
Well, David makes a point here. David makes a point. He says the tool I found was on top of leaf litter with no dirt. Now that makes sense.
Not saying they're not smart. Primates are extremely smart. And I often talk about that too, is that, why can't we get a Sasquatch? Why is it so hard to capture a Sasquatch? Why, can't we get, well, think about it. If you look at a chimpanzee that can figure out after 13 days to come into a room, grab a pipe and then push a banana out after it been presented that situation for the several days. And now it figured it out. And again, oh my God, girl, great point. Don't the hairy people use wood to create sound to communicate through? Well, we do believe they would knock. Chimpanzees do that as well. Chimpanzees will bang a stick on a tree.
They're amazing.
So yes, I mean, if they're wood knocking, that's a tool use too. But it's not a complicated tool use. We still haven't seen them use fire. Otherwise, we would be finding these campsites all over the place.
Well, that would make them a lot easier to find. It really would, because you can see a fire from a long ways
I see other people saying, some good points. Animals can be very perceptive, like the dachshund pulling the blanket over every night as it bedded down to sleep down. John said, I confirmed a young gray fox playing with stones a larger bit bigger than golf balls they're using to play as toys. I'll give you one better. And I will download this video at some point. But in 2013, we had this. I was living in this apartment complex for like 3 months. Hated it there. The apartment flooded within 3 months. I was out of there. But before it flooded, we had a big population of turkey vultures flying around. And turkey vultures by nature eat carrion. And there was a lot of kids in the place. And one day I open up my front door, and 15 feet in front of my door, there's 2 turkey vultures. Just sitting there.
Wonderful.
Well, they don't bother you. They're just there. They're just big birds. They don't care. They don't bother you. They don't attack people. They eat carrion. And you know what one of those turkey vultures did? There was a kickball that one of the kids had left out in the yard. And don't you know that turkey vulture began to play with the kickball? The turkey vulture was playing with the kickball.
Yeah.
And they're nudging it, jumping on it, nudging it.
Oh, man.
So,
a lot of interesting conversation going on in the chat over here.
and
Yeah.
oh my God, girl, I don't doubt that those are traditions, and I'm glad you respect those. I respect them as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But we're looking at, I don't think are archaic humans. Oh, and they are more like the red-haired giants. Okay, that makes a little more sense. So here's the thing. There's always been some, and again, all respect to your background and the Native Americans and the First Nations. But there's always been, and if you go back to the tales of the sailors that came over here and talked about the giant squids and the mermaids, and turns out they believed the mermaids were perhaps beluga whales or narwhals or, something of that nature. And the giant squid actually turned out to be a giant squid. Just not as ferocious as they made him out to be.
Yeah, they weren't taking down no shit.
I believe, in all honesty, there is some truth in the Native American stories, but I won't take them word for word, because if you would, then the wolf has a spirit, and the eagle, the eagles came down, the wolves came down. They all did these magical things and these things of legend, and that's fine. That's great history. That's great anthropology, great story. Maybe back in those days that was the case. Today, if you think about it, today we have very similar legends amongst us weird white people. The weird Europeans. Oh, if there's a crow on the the crow is a bringer of death. You see a crow on your your windowsill, it means death.
Oh yeah, the bird.
You're right. Yeah, mermaids. That is quite the rabbit. I don't know if it's a rabbit hole or maybe a whirlpool. But anyway,
yeah, I believe in some of that old stuff too. Like if a bird flies in your house and lands on your side of the bed, that's it, man. It's curtains.
Yeah, and if a cardinal visits you, it's a person, a loved one that's passed on is coming to visit you. So there's a lot of different legends that you can take at face value, but most of the time they're just superstitions. Some of the time it makes you go, huh?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you one story. Sure. Just to be a real quick one, and this is related to superstitions. Okay, back when my youngest son Andy was first born, he got his days and nights mixed up. Now, for everybody that's had children, especially infants, you know what that's like. Okay, stays up all night and then sleeps during the day. Well, normally human mom and dad have to sleep at night sometime. But my cousin Jason, he's passed away now. He was killed in a car wreck years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He told me his wife and him and his wife had a child and had the same problem. They took their infant child to an old woman who was more or less like a shaman. And he told me, he said, here's what you got to do. He said, I watched what she did. She took the baby and held the baby over a bed. So she wasn't going to drop the baby on the floor. And she turned the baby all the way around, upside down, and then right back side up. And then handed him the baby. Well, after about 3 more days of no sleep, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to try it. And I did. And you know what? It worked like a charm. That kid went to sleep at night and he stayed up during the day. It fixed it.
Hey, and you know what? I got to say, I think it's the first time we've seen Oh My God Girl in the OMG Girl in the house here.
Welcome.
And welcome. And thank you for bringing that perspective. We love that. And it's kind of funny. She's right in line with us saying, well, the hairy people by most tribes are mostly seen as physical beings like wolves, eagles, etc.
Right.
And she's right in line with us. The cloaking portals, I'm not buying. Their ability is like camouflage and blending with the environment. Being absolutely. If
OMG Girl, welcome home.
Welcome home.
You have found a new home with us. So
yeah, we try not to put out all the I don't want to say wackadoo, but stuff that's just not supported necessarily by science. But I always look at it this way, and I did that when I wrote my second book, What Would Sasquatch Do?
Right.
If it made sense, you can take it a step up for the next evolution, but you cannot take it more than one step up. You can't take it 2 steps up, because then, like, for example, let me get a good one. Well, like for infrasound, the largest mammals of each species can create infrasound.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that Sasquatch would be the biggest primate, would have that ability. That makes sense.
Yeah.
A bioluminescence. Some people say their eye shine. The tapetum lucidum, eye shine. I say a Sasquatch likely has a tapetum lucidum. Other people say they bioluminesce. Well, what makes more sense? There are 12 species of primates. Unfortunately, they're not great apes. They're lower monkeys. But they have a tapetum lucidum. Right? So it makes sense that, okay, a primate does have 12 species of primates do have a tapetum lucidum. Maybe this is just because they're nocturnal. This is one of their adaptations.
And it makes more sense that
that makes more sense. But bioluminescence, well, what mammal can bioluminesce? None. Some invertebrate fish can do it.
Right. Ocean life.
Right. So that makes no sense to jump to that conclusion because no mammal can do it. No primate can do it. Why would we think a Sasquatch can do that when none of the other?
The problem with the thought that they could generate light from their own eyes was if they could generate light, then that light would overwhelm the optic nerve. So all they would see is they'd be blinded.
As we showed earlier tonight, I don't know if you've been here the whole night, but we talked about the Danuvius guggenmosi. Yeah, we definitely descended from hairy people. We're all descendants of hairy people.
I'm still hairy.
Yeah, when I go to the barber, I tell him a little off the back. I mean, a little off the back.
Man.
But yeah, that's the important thing is that you never go too far off the topic. It was like the whole, where does their smell come from? Their musky smell come from? Right. People said maybe it's there, and maybe they have apocrine glands like gorillas, but that would mean they would have to have split off 9 million years ago with the gorillas to our line. Right?
Yeah. And, the report of the smell is not consistent either. And I've experienced that. Had sightings with no scent, no odor whatsoever. And then
right on, David. Right on. The only time I've seen Bigfoot eye shine, there was a light source. Even though it may just be a little bit.
Right.
Doesn't take much. I mean, I've seen deer all of a sudden, your headlights are going one way, but they're off 100 feet the other way, and you can see their eyes shining back at you or the moonlight can do it if it hits it a certain way. And I think the problem is their eyes are so big and they're so bright. When you get their eyes and they reflect, they're reflecting, it actually looks like, because they're so bright, it actually looks like they are projecting a eye shine. But
we have seen deer. Now, the wife and I typically drive through Mammoth Cave after dark quite often. And we had seen deer in the headlights. You can't miss their eye shine. And over there, the deer are pretty calm, so you could pull up next to them and stop in the road, and they're over to the right or to the left of your vehicle. Now, I could see the deer movement, but I couldn't see it, very clearly. I turned on the interior light of my vehicle and caught eye shine. Yeah. Just that amount of light from the interior light of my vehicle reflected off that deer's eyeballs.
Because what that tapetum lucidum is a collector. It's collecting. It's just trying to collect.
Just a very little bit.
Now in our own eyes, we have something called rhodopsin. And that rhodopsin gives us, unfortunately, being being an ex-paramedic and being a current EVO, that's kind of out right now on an injury. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And you want to know something? Sasquatch smells worse because I've smelled one of those guys.
Yeah.
Seen 2, smelled 1. I don't. But where was I going with the rhodopsin. So what happens is when we get bright light in front of our eyes, the rhodopsin level goes down. So that's what causes night blindness. It's like, oh, because we've gotten blinded by light. That's why. But believe it or not, rhodopsin in our eyes are a little less sensitive to red light than they are to white light or any other light in the spectrum. And that's why we use red light sometimes to move around, because it doesn't kill our night vision. So that's just a little.
And, you know, our eyeballs don't reflect light.
Correct.
Now, one of my twin boys, Jared.
Unless, of course, you have cataracts.
One of my twin boys, Jared, his eyes do reflect light, is because he's had that surgery and had those lenses put in. And at night, when he looks at the light, you can see his eyes shine.
Wow.
But it's no colors or anything. Just whatever color light reflects back.
Have you ever seen any of the Riddick movies?
Riddick, yeah. Pitch Black and all the rest.
I love the Chronicles of Riddick. That was by far the best of the trilogy. I thought. Yeah.
Very cool.
You keep what you kill. That was a good movie.
It was. Sasquatch. Here we got on this body smell again.
Yeah, bad idea.
Oh, Sasquatch Wizard Adirondack says, isn't it interesting? Some humans have horrible body odor and others don't. Maybe this is why some reports claim a foul smell and some don't. Well,
I don't know. Like I said, I had that idea with the musk. If they have an apple-rich diet, they can smell musky, because it's been known that Jane Goodall, when she was habituating the chimps, the fermented apples and everything.
Right. They love to go for the rotten apples.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Jen, you can't shine the red lights in your eyes too. I said it's resistant. Our rhodopsin is resistant to red light. It doesn't mean it's immune to it. So yeah, you put a red light in your eye, so you're gonna get it.
Yeah, that bright light will mess with your night vision.
Well, you see, you're on the right path there, OMG girl. I think evolutionary and their lifestyle. Well, our lifestyle creates evolution. If you live a certain way, eventually you will evolve to become that way. That's why we have spiders that only dwell in caves that are blind. They have no eyesight at all. In fact, some of them don't even have eyes because they're not needed. They use their pedipalps on their feet to feel and sense things rather than their eyes, because they're in total darkness. I think that, since a Sasquatch will live at night and it predominantly works at night, it developed over time the ability to pedum lucidum. It was an evolutionary gift, basically, say. I mean, just like us, if you think about it, our feet look a lot different than our feet did 2,500 years ago. Our pinky toe has gotten smaller over the years. And why is that? Have any idea, Chris?
Shoes.
Bingo. Because we started wearing shoes. So now we're born with smaller pinky toes. Because for whatever reason, and this is why sometimes you wonder about, is there, I don't want to get into a religious track here, but I wonder sometimes if there is some divinity pulling the cords. And I, like I said, I am a believer in God.
Yeah.
But I think this is part of the evolutionary thing. They're pulling string. It's almost like pulling strings. Like, okay, they're not using they don't need that foot to grasp the stones because they're using shoes. So the toes start to disappear. Does that get programmed into our DNA? How does that work?
Well, part of it's environment too, because while we wear shoes and our toes and stuff are kind of like pretty much crimped together now. If you look in places like Papua New Guinea, where a lot of the tribes there go shoeless,
Their feet don't have that. Yeah.
Right. Their tracks, their toes are separated, and rather than being crimped together, they're out.
Right. They're born with their feet like that, but yet,
yeah, right.
The folks that have been wearing shoes for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, they're not. That's
right.
What does that? It's kind of like when I love dogs, as you know, and it's like the dog is the only animal that can be born and understand what a human does. For example, one of the dogs are known to read people's facial expressions and understand their meanings, like instinctually. But there's another thing too that they've learned instinctually that's part of their mega DNA now. You can put a puppy there and point over here, and the puppy will go to that where you're pointing. Right. They tried that experiment with wolves, foxes, and chimpanzees. And not a one of them understood what pointing meant. Hmm. But dogs, if you point, they will look.
Right.
Part of their DNA makeup. It's amazing. So when people say, well, how can a Sasquatch have a tapetum lucidum when none of the other great apes have that? Because if they're wandering around at nighttime for 1,000 years, guess what happens? Mother Nature. Now you have a tapetum lucidum. Now you're starting to have births with tapetum lucidums.
Getting back to the feet, you can, you can look up your foot, and you can find pictures online that will describe your genealogy based on your shape of your foot and your toes, and I thought that's really interesting. Of course, my wife comes from Thailand. And her feet, her toes are almost like you could put a level across them. They're all the same length, And of course, mine are kind of angled. The big toe, and then it angles down to the little toe. But,
so you see these little genetic codes making their way into diversity,
right? Oh. Cryptic crystal, foot binding. Yeah. Oh, that's a terrible thing. I've seen that. That is terrible.
But that I mean, we're talking about straight. When somebody's born, you look at a baby's little in their toes, like tiny little toe, and that's going away. And they suspect that within a couple of 1,000 years, we're going to have 4 toes.
Probably. The pinky toe will probably go away,
and our feet will be even less malleable to spin around. At least those that continue to wear shoes. So you'll see a divergence in Homo sapiens, the footed ones versus the web kind of footed ones. That may be a million years.
Yeah. OMG girls, Hawaii, and her feet are almost square. That's like my wife, Sandy.
Mahalo.
Her feet are almost square. Really
Don going to ask if we walked and slept during the day, what would we look like in 1,000 years? Yeah, I mean, drastically a little bit different. I would say we would be a little bit hairier for warmth. Yeah.
Well, we've got the genes, but they're switched off, and some people you might see maybe switched on a little bit more than others.
Friggin' Pat. Yeah, having a little make it easier getting my footy pajamas. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Well, we always used to joke because we're from Kentucky and we're raising tobacco, on the farm, and we always say we had bird feet because we could stand up in the barn and wrap our feet around a tier pole. Like a bird's foot, hang on. Not really, but
so you have all these adaptations. That's entirely possible. This has been such a This has been a real fun discussion tonight. And again, I don't think you're going to get this kind of discussion a lot of times on some of the other channels. Like, you'll get stories and you'll get interviews, but every once in a while we like to break it down and talk about a real complicated subject like this and go over it for a couple hours and have fun with it. Because it definitely, I want people to get their mind thinking. Get your minds thinking. If we get our minds thinking on this topic, we'll end up solving it. And to my own fault, there's times I get diverted into other things. But, people, and it came to me this week too, is that, when I was on a show, well, you're known for busting hoaxes. No, I'm known for busting hoaxes, but it's because I'm researching a sighting.
Yeah.
And I'm applying science to it. It's not that I'm a hoax buster. I'm an investigator. And if something comes up that says, holy tamales, this is a Bigfoot, Sasquatch,
right,
hairy man, whatever you want to call him. This is it. That's one thing, right? But a lot of times it comes out the other way.
Yeah.
So.
And you got to be honest. You can't take something that's not worth 2 cents and say, "Oh yeah, this is worth $1 million." You can't do that. And unfortunately, the way the Bigfoot evidence has been lately, it's been much of it not worth.
Well, the problem is we never get too much data. You need data to present Bigfoot evidence. If you present a film or a photograph or an audio, you need data. Where did it happen? When did it happen? Who was there? What occurred? And what time of day was it? What was the weather like? And all that stuff. We don't get that. So a lot of the so-called Bigfoot evidence you see coming out is not really evidence. If there's no chain of custody, if there's none of that, it's not evidence. So we got to push it aside. So my whole goal right now, going forward for the rest of the year, is to inspire people to get that evidence. Inspire people to get that evidence and get it to a scientist, because we're not scientists. I can get DNA. I can see a Bigfoot on the webcam, and the DNA is being collected right there. And I have an audio of it too, but I can't say it's a Bigfoot. I got to give that to science, and they can tell us it's a Bigfoot. That's the important thing. That's what we need to be doing. That's what we need to be focusing on. This is, and it took me years to figure that out too. So I can't be the one to solve this. None of us, we're not scientists. I couldn't write a scientific paper if you threw my shoe at it, because I don't have the background in it. I can write one hell of investigative report, though. I can tell you that much. Just write an investigative report on an arson that led you to a murder that had occurred several months earlier. Figure the paperwork on that one. But especially when you're the sole investigator and you're working with chain of custody of evidence, and you're working with interviews and recordings and photographs and and the report, and I'm doing it all. That's kind of some people will say, well, you were never a police investigator. I investigated plenty of crimes, but the thing is, when I investigated stuff, I was everything. I was forensics. I was the interviewer. I was the guy that put the case together. I was the guy who researched the backgrounds on things. And ultimately, I was the guy who said, this is my opinion. I leave it up to you to make your decision on it. I did it all. So it was much more labor intensive than a lot of...
Mick's got a good point, Steve. Bring that up. Mick says, Steve, I don't agree with tossing all evidence for which we can't vouch to.
But here's the problem with that, Mick, is we have to. Because science won't, if you find a bone, you say, oh, this guy gave this bone to me. right? And you don't have the name of that person, where or when he collected it, it's not, they're not going to look at it. You have to have a chain of custody. Even if you say, okay, what's your name? When did you collect it? That's all about interviewing the person that's giving you the evidence. Like, for example, the Bigfoot tooth. Well, we knew that was a hoax because the letter they put out there was completely hoax. There was misspelling and grammar errors and stuff like that. It was did not conform to a normal DNA letter. But let's just say, for example, I was a DNA lab, and I said, "Oh, wow, that's a Bigfoot." And they said, "Oh, we found this Bigfoot tooth. Here's the DNA letter." Doesn't prove anything because they did not list where they found it, what time they found it, where they found it, who handled it, who didn't handle it. That's all going to be part of the process.
Well, yeah, but if you bring in a Bigfoot head, regardless, where it came from, when scientists can test it, where did you get this Bigfoot head from? Well, I'm not telling you. That don't mean it's not real.
Well, it's still a chain of custody there.
Oh, no, you got the Bigfoot head. I got a Bigfoot head right here. Where did you get it from? It don't matter. Here it is.
Well, I would look at it this way. If you have something you have something conclusive, you have something inconclusive,
right?
And it turns out to be something interesting, science is going to want to know where they found that. Well, you could have found that, that could have been a fossil found in a gravel pit that's known to harbor, that maybe one of the archaeological sites that are in the United States before that they just picked this out of. Yeah. So how do we know? Right. And that'd be the worry about it. If you're coming with a Bigfoot head, that's a little bit different. So, but let's say I have this bone that I think is a Bigfoot bone, right? Yeah. Let's just say it was given to me. What am I supposed to tell a scientist? Well, DNA test this. Well, where did it come from? I mean, they can give you a DNA test, but then now you have this DNA test saying that, well, it's an unknown primate. If you're not able to say where it came from, when it came from, and whom it came from, science is really going to have a hard time writing a paper on it to verify it. That's what you need to understand.
My mouse just died. Hang on, I'll change it.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. We keep extra batteries here for this.
I agree with you, Mick. I really wish chain of evidence or chain of custody of evidence did not really mean any important. But when you get down to the scientific method, you need to understand you have to have a chain of custody. Believe it or not, Melba Ketchum had a chain of custody. Every one of her samples, she knew exactly where it came from, whom it came from, and where it came from, and when it was collected.
Yeah, Melba.
I understand that, but even in that sham science thing, she had a chain of custody. Yeah. How do you expect a respected scientist to write a paper where we don't know where it came from, we don't know who it came from? Oh, this guy got a bone from somebody, and here it is, and we found it as an unknown primate. There's nothing to write, because what a scientist would want to do is, I want to go back to that area and look more. Maybe we can abstract more samples, and we can start building a model.
Well, we've got a question in here, which is a thought discussion from Sasquatch Wizard and Rondex. Steve, based off known primates, how long should we expect Sasquatch to provide parental care for their offspring? That's a great question to think about.
Hard to say. I would say at least several years.
Yeah, I think so too.
Several years. Then when they, depending on their growth potential, one would think like the 5.5 foot one I'd seen, maybe that was, a 4 or 5 year old. I don't know.
Right.
But they get to a certain height, I would probably say around, 4 or 5 years. I do not know off the top of my head the maturity of other primates off the top of my head.
the family group that I had seen in Kentucky had what?
Yeah. So Mick, I think
Mick, toddler.
I think Mick said here that, you know, if you want science, then I change the right. And that was my point. It wasn't my point that we needed everything, but we do need a chain of custody when it comes to a photograph or a picture in order to put a stamp of approval on it. That should be our standard. We need to know who it came from, where it came from, and what time and date it came from.
If I come in with a Bigfoot body part, I'm not going to tell them where it came from. Say, well,
Right,
it came from
right,
Bigfoot.
right. Totally different.
Yeah, you're not getting my area.
But what I'm saying is, when it comes to an audio or photograph or a video that somebody's putting forward, we need a chain of custody. Otherwise, it's not evidence. Sorry. Because that is the definition of evidence, is something that also has a chain of custody attached to it. You know, that was, there was another question by Pete H. Do you think Sasquatch predates man? Tough to say. Could they be, you know, maybe they don't. Maybe they come in a little after us. Maybe they come in a little before us. But I think factually, I think that, you know, like I said, as we saw today, the splits from the other primates from Homo sapien occurred, you know, 7 to 9 million years ago. So one would assume that they split off from us 7 to 9 million years ago as they developed into what we know today as the Sasquatch. So, but that's the real important parts that I think that always need to be brought out. That's right.
Mick says, if I haul in a Sasquatch head, I'm telling them I got it from Steve and Chris.
And yeah. Thank you, sir. Great.
Killing me, man.
We'll take all the credit. That's fine. Think OMG girl says, I think they're powerless. Maybe. It's one of those questions we can't really answer because we don't have one genotype. Once we get the genotype, we can figure out all of where it came from down the road. Well, because we need to see what it's actually related to.
I think they would have probably did a whole lot better than we did during the last ice age because they already had hair. And Homo erectus didn't have as much hair as what Bigfoot does today. So I think they would have probably did a little bit better. Yeah, I think they would have done a little bit better than we did surviving. But, you know, that's the thing, though. We've got our brain, so, you know, we were using fire and tools and stuff like that. Whereas so far, there's not been that much evidence to suggest Sasquatch, Bigfoot used tools or fire.
I mean, I would think that if Sasquatch existed, I think it actually started springing up. Well, we can look at this the easy way. What period of time was the land bridge between Alaska and the Bering Strait was all solid?
Right. When
the movement of all the animals came over from there. I mean, we were Homo sapiens then.
Yeah.
So I don't. There might possibly be that what we know today as a Sasquatch did not really completely exist as a Sasquatch back at the time of Homo erectus during the Ice Age. So hard to say. Boris, bon appetit, brother. But yeah, great discussion, great ideas. I mean, it's so hard to say.
Yeah.
Officer, I was standing there minding my own business. These guys drove by me, tossed the head at me, yelling, "Ballyhoo!
Ballyhoo!"
But yeah, that's my thoughts on that whole process. I'm not sure. I couldn't even begin to tell you. I could tell you in the evolutionary chain where it began to split, perhaps. I have some idea. Yeah, I mean, you did talk a little bit about the, that one, Sahelanthropus. Because 7 million comes from the same line as we do, but we went one way and it evolved. And they evolved naturally. Yep. Yeah. I mean, entirely possible. That is actually on my list here. Yep. Sahelanthropus tecadensis, and one of the earliest known species in the hominin lineage discovered in Chad. So that one was on the list too. But truthfully, I talked about the Ardipithecus, which is 4.5 million years ago, which is nearer to modern time. And that was showing both ape-like and human-like characteristics. But then again, this is also 4 million years after the chimpanzee lineage and the gorilla lineage broke off into their own branch. So interesting, really interesting. It's kind of a
The nice thing about it, science is still an open book. We're still making new discoveries every day.
Absolutely. And like I said, there's when it comes to where Sasquatch broke off from where we are, could be many years ago, it could be recently. I mean, who knows? The gorillas broke off the line before we did, or before the chimpanzees did. But if you think about the chimpanzees, which have the most DNA of ours, the closest pan-troglodyte, the closest animal to us, split off our evolutionary chain 8.5 million years ago.
And I'm going to look up that number too, for what percentage DNA that chimpanzees have.
Something like 98.4. So I really think that this is one of those just a spellbinding conversation. Just a spellbinding conversation. It's like it's so wild. It could be.
It's we share 98.8% DNA with a chimpanzee.
Yeah, they upped that a little bit. It used to be like 98.4.
Right.
Now
that small little percentage is the difference between us and chimpanzees.
Yeah, 1.2%.
Wow.
Steve, given the what some think they know, do you think Sasquatch recognize individuals within the dominance hierarchy? Yeah. They're smart enough to know. Bears are smart enough to know. Like, maybe I meant. I mean, there are certain bears that don't. Yeah. But if you think about it, they're pretty smart. They've never preyed on us. In fact, they've flee us. So they definitely know we're more dominant.
Right.
Probably because we look so much foreign to them. Remember, we're Homo Sapiens. We're pretty smart. We know animals and catalog different things. They come across us and go, "Oh, what the hell is that?" And then they see us using these different devices, and they see us using guns, and they see us using, crossbows, and they see us, driving off in these contraptions with, these round things on the corners of them.
Right.
I would think they know that, hey, I don't know. And you also have to remember, if you remember it throughout history, Homo sapiens have wiped out everything.
Yeah.
We were not, people like to blame a lot of our ways. Oh, look how bad we were in the 50s and 60s. We almost caused extinction to all these animals. Well, guess what? We were doing it ever since we've been plopped on the genome. Homo sapiens wiped out the Denisovans. They wiped out the Homo erectus. They wiped out many different animals.
We wiped out the mammoths.
The mammoths.
That's pretty bad.
Right.
The Tasmanian tigers. There you go. David Parker got a good point here, Steve. David says, since fossils require a specific set of circumstances, and most primates dwell in the forest, fossils are few and far between.
Absolutely.
That is so true. So true. And I think Dr. Jeff Meldrum made a comment one time, which I agree with, because I have looked into this before too. If you took all the human fossils that have been found, you could probably place them all together in the same room on a large conference table. And that's it. And I know some people think, wait a minute, you go to all these museums and they've got human fossil bones. That's wrong. They have reproductions. They have a copy that they buy from a certain company that is made to be reproduced, like the Lucy skeleton and stuff. Right. It's all.
So there's a couple of comments I want to address. First is, so either stories of the hybrid children is false, or Bigfoot is closely related to us. They intentionally avoid us. Right. The problem with hybridization periods last a very short period of time. So when the Ketchum study came out and tried to say, oh, this was some hybridization, that would have ended many, many years ago. So that in and of itself didn't make sense. Hybridization takes just a very, and most of the time what happens when you get a hybrid is you get a non-sustainable population, because many hybrids are sterile.
They are sterile. That is true.
You know, for example, two jackasses cannot produce another jackass because they're sterile.
Well, if you get a mule, they're sterile. But now there have been some cases, rare, but it has happened, where the female mule has been bred to a male mule, and she did have a little baby mule or a foal, whatever you want to call it. Right. And but as it turned out, that baby did not have the genetic material from the father. It was a clone of the mother.
Right.
It had two sets of mother's what do they call it, chromosomes. So yeah, it does not work. You can get one generation that's hybrid, but they're sterile. They cannot reproduce.
Yep. Right.
If they do reproduce, it's going to be a clone of the female, and that's it. I mean, you can't.
Now, yes, but I would be very careful calling them a people. A people represents organization. See, when you talk about a people, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Mesopotamians, they were people. They were a people. The Aztecs, the Mayans, they were a people. People represents an organizational type of and sophistication. So they're not a people. Do they have their own family units? I would think so. Do they have their own groups? I would think so. I would not call them pods, tribes, clans, because again, you call them clans, you're attributing anthropocentrism onto that characterization. Right. Clans were Scottish. Right. So just be careful with the vernacular and the verbose you use, because that can make people think differently or inaccurately.
I got a question for you, Steve. Do you think that Sasquatch, Bigfoot, live a nomadic lifestyle where they're not really true to staying in one place?
Hang on, let me just... Okay, so what's the question here?
I said, do you think that Bigfoot, Sasquatch live a nomadic lifestyle rather than staying put in one place.
No. I think they have different seasonal homes in certain areas.
Right.
Depending on weather. Like us, we've seen that tilt to the Adirondacks to the Green Mountains during the wintertime and back to the Adirondacks in the fairer months, because the leaves are on the trees in the fairer months in the Adirondacks, whereas they drop them, then they move off too. And also the food is now, just so you know, the definition of people means human beings in general and are considered collectively. People are also men, women, and children of a particular nation, community, or ethnic group. So that is the definition of people. So no, they're not a people. So just want to swing away from that.
I think they are emotional beings, though. I think they have emotions.
Dogs are emotional beings. Chimpanzees are emotional beings.
True.
You know, gorillas are emotional. Think about Coco. Remember Coco, who the sign language when her cat died? Remember when her cat died and she kept going?
Well,
sad?
Yeah. Well,
sad.
Yeah, but gorillas and chimpanzees can hug and show affection and stuff too, just like Bigfoot.
OMG girl, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great.
So anyway, we are at the 10:59 mark anyway. And it's time to go. But we will be back Friday night. Wonder what we're going to do Friday night. Is it going to be a Bigfoot news night? Is it going to be an evidence review night? Or is it going to be the Bigfoot rap? Talking about Bigfoot everywhere. Does it have red, gray, black hair?
No.
I'm sorry, bad man. Wrong Bigfoot rap.
I can't do rap, no.
So anyway, on behalf of go ahead, Chris. Do your thing, man. We're not gonna get out of here.
I just want to say thank you guys for joining us in the chat. It's always a privilege and an honor to have you, and we're tickled to death to have you every week. We know we've got the best audience in Bigfooting, and we sure appreciate you, and we love you each and every one. And be sure to join us Friday night. Yeah. And
as always, so good to have a nice, refreshing conversation once in a while. It was like one of these ideas. I really want to talk about this today. Let's do something different. Let's just talk about this stuff is fascinating as all heck. And I'm glad everybody was here to join us for it. We'll be back Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. And hey, everybody, be safe, stay cool. God bless, and of course, keep on squatching. We'll catch you all next week. We'll catch you all Friday night.
We thank you for being here with us on Squatch-DTV. If you haven't taken the time yet, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And oh yes, hit that notification bell too. We don't want you to miss anything. If you really like our content, you should consider becoming a member, and it's really inexpensive and a great way to support not only the show, but honest Bigfoot research. Everyone have a great week. Be safe and God bless. We will see you all here next time on Squatch-DTV. Keep on squatching.